Well, good morning. It's Brent Adams here with your Rural Strong Morning Ag Report for this Monday, February 5th. Coming to you this morning from Fort Worth, Texas. Headed to the legendary Fort Worth stockyards in a bit, but before I do, leading off the headlines this morning, grain markets are in a low, driven by supply, according to Brian Doherty of Total Farm Marketing.
That's what happens when you have a bigger supply year and you've got low prices and the money flow continues to sell rallies. We haven't seen any change in that. There's not enough weather in the southern hemisphere to capture the spirit of buyers to jump in and aggressively purchase. So you end up with a year like this where the market has to chew through supply. So end users buy only as needed. Farmers got a lot to sell. The end user knows it. So they're not going to chase the market right now.
That will change, Doherty says, once the market can find a bottom.
You think about it this way. We went into a harvest and had a better yield than expected, more supply. Farmers didn't have as much sold. Therefore, the market needs to just get through inventory. All of the uncertainty lies ahead. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if we're trying to carve out a bottom. We just haven't seen the trigger point yet.
Doherty explains what this means for spring planting acres.
Right now, if you look at where the price of November beans is divided by December corn price, it's 2.5. So that would tell us we're going to switch some acres to beans. But remember, last year we switched 4 million acres out of beans. So there should be a natural progression back into beans and farmers get more into the rotational period. But I don't think there's a battle this year for acres. If it's almost the opposite, is who can shed acres.
That's Brian Doherty of Total Farm Marketing. A special thank you to Brian Winnikins of WRDN Radio in Durand, Wisconsin for that audio. Well, the Cattle Facts Outlook Seminar at the 2024 Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Florida shared expert market and weather analytics last week. The smallest beef cow inventory in the last 50 years, coupled with historically strong demand, led to the highest average fed cattle and calf prices in 2023. As reduced cattle numbers and beef production continue over the next 3 years, leverage and profitability will continue to favor cattle producers. Despite record prices, an expansion will likely be delayed once again. Lingering drought, high input costs, limited labor availability, high interest rates, and market uncertainty all serve as headwinds against the growing cow herd. Cow and bull slaughter is forecast to be 6.5 million head in 2024, down around 800,000 head from 2023. Though cattle inventories may stay elevated for a few months, they're expected to decline significantly through the second half of 2024, says Kevin Good of Cattle Facts. Well, the bipartisan tax bill the House just passed overwhelmingly likely has enough Senate votes, but GOP detractors there vow to slow it down. The House vote approving the tax bill with key breaks for agriculture was 5-1. American Farm Bureau Federation Director of Government Affairs Dustin Scherer says that should be good news for the bill in the Senate.
So if you apply that same generalization over there, then it's got the votes to pass. It should be bipartisan. But whether or not there are senators that are oppose it so much that they really try to drag the process out.
Several GOP senators now vote to do just that, seeking changes to the bill's renewed expansion of the child care tax credit. And Scherer points out just how easy it is in the Senate to slow things down.
They have incentive to be engaged when it comes time to talk about extending the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expiring provisions that almost entirely fall on the individual side of the code where farmers and ranchers file their taxes.
But Scherer says Democrats must also consider savings achieved now by making the retroactive cuts ahead of next year's tax cliff for these breaks.
They have incentive to be engaged when it comes time to talk about extending the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expiring provisions that almost entirely fall on the individual side of the code where farmers and ranchers file their taxes.
This has an impact on how much producers pay for everything from buildings and equipment to high interest costs, especially in an election year. While America's soy complex exports added $39.8 billion to the U.S. economy in marketing year 2022-2023 on a volume of 67.6 million metric tons. The shining star was U.S. soybean meal exports, which broke records for both volume and value at 13.2 million metric tons and $6.91 billion, respectively. Increased demand from both Colombia and Ecuador boosted U.S. soybean meal exports by 15% and 36%, respectively, above their 5-year averages. Meanwhile, increased volume and higher prices saw U.S. soybean meal exports increase in value by 39% over the last 5 years. Despite persistent global challenges to international businesses, U.S. whole soybean exports hit 54.2 million metric tons and kept pace with the previous 5-year average. And finally, this morning, it's been an unusual winter in parts of the upper Midwest and the Corn Belt. While the north is normally a frozen tundra, temperatures have been much warmer than typical this time of year. Dennis Toddy, director of the Midwest Climate Hub in Iowa, says there are two reasons behind the warm up.
One, we have a very strong El Nino that has impacted our winter. And then we've got some larger background climate change issues that are impacting our winters. The overall warmth that we have seen this winter was really not a surprise. And despite that one big cold shot we had earlier in January, the winter has overall been warmer than average. And that's the way it's looking. We have a very good chance of that being warmer than average for the whole winter.
Some parts of the region receive several inches of snow, while other areas are completely free of snow.
As for the snow, that is a very odd situation because the storm track lined up for that period around Christmas time to the early part of January, where we had several storm systems over the same area. Around Christmas time, it was mostly rain in the region. And then as we got into January, we had two major storm systems that crossed central and eastern Iowa, along with some lesser system that dropped all that snowfall.
Some parts of the Midwest and Corn Belt are dry, while others are at the end of the moisture scale.
The eastern Corn Belt, going from mostly Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, has become relatively wet over the last month plus. Situation has improved there. Missouri has also improved. Iowa, Minnesota, parts of eastern Nebraska, especially a good chunk of Iowa, still is very dry overall. But the carry on from the dry conditions we had last year and into the fall, they really have not improved an awful lot. And then the problem has been trying to assess with this precipitation after that, because the melting snow and then the rain has been able to enter the soil moisture profile, which has been a great benefit, a great boost. So that's sorely needed.
Even in areas where water is running off, extra precipitation is helpful.
In places where we're getting runoff, that's okay too, because the dryness has been pervasive enough that we had a lot of streams that were low and still low in Iowa. We have low groundwater in places in Iowa too. So we need water in multiple forms to try to overcome those issues. We've overcome a lot of those issues in the eastern Corn Belt, that we have some minor flooding occurring in places now. So we've generally improved the situation over there.
Again, that's Dennis Toddy of the Midwest Climate Center. Well, you can keep up with the latest from the world of agriculture by subscribing to the Tractors and Troubadours podcast from Rural Strong Media. Each week, I bring you agriculture industry newsmakers, hot-button industry issues, educational features, and the best in traditional country music. The Tractors and Troubadours podcast can be found at ruralstrongmedia.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We also invite you to join us daily on Rural Strong Radio, our 24/7 streaming radio station, found at ruralstrongmedia.com or the Live 365 streaming radio app for your mobile device. Each day, we bring you our award-winning agriculture programming, as well as the best in traditional country music, mixed in with a little bluegrass, western swing, southern rock, and inspirational music. Again, the place to find Rural Strong Radio is ruralstrongmedia.com or the Live 365 streaming radio app. We're portable, so take us with you everywhere you go while you're working on the farm or ranch. Let's get through the workday together. Well, I'll be back again tomorrow with another Rural Strong Morning Ag Report here on Steve Shetler Media. Make it a great day, everybody.